Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing makeup on my beautiful mother. And unfortunately, my camera decided to not record the eyeshadow, so you can see right now I'm just doing some black eyeliner, but the eyeshadow is very, very basic. All I did was 2 neutral brown shades and then a flesh toned color on the lid. Nothing too intense, especially since we're doing mature makeup. But I am putting on false lashes. These are the Ardell Natural Wispies, and I did a little tiny winged liner. You want to be sure when you're doing any kind of mature makeup, if you're a makeup artist or if you're just older, you want to be very careful with the eyeliner, not go overboard. It's important to keep eyeliner and eyeshadows relatively light and natural looking, just to avoid looking older than you are. So as you can see, I am just applying the false eyelashes. I think false eyelashes work well on everyone, and I think that they especially work well on older women because a lot of times when you get older, your eyelashes start to thin or start to come out, or you have less of them or whatever, and false eyelashes can definitely give a more youthful appearance. So this is the Makeup Forever Step 1 Smoothing Primer. I love this for anybody who is, pretty much anybody, but especially anyone who's over the age of like 30 or 40, because I feel like you definitely have the opportunity to have more pores as noticeable, some fine lines, any kind of spots or scarring, and this is just going to make all of that go away completely. So I'm just using my beauty blender and applying that, and I'm going to speed through it a little bit here, but I'm putting that in all of the main areas that tend to show any kind of texture or any kind of fine lines or anything like that. So right now I'm using my Morphe M439 brush, I believe, with the Makeup Forever HD stick foundation. I think this foundation is completely amazing, especially for somebody who has issues with like the cake face look. This foundation does not look dry. It doesn't look oily in my opinion either. I think it looks very, very natural on everybody. And as you can see, this shade is a little bit light, but since we're going to be going in with concealer and contour and all of that, it's going to make a difference. So I'm using the Ultra HD concealers by Makeup Forever, and I'm mixing Y33 with R20 just because I didn't have one that matched her exactly. So those are the two that I have. I'm just mixing them and making a perfect shade for her. And since she does have some redness in her skin, this yellowy shade will get rid of that. So I'm just putting that in those areas and blending it out with the beauty blender. I think this evens out the skin tone, and you want to be very careful with the under eye area, especially if you have any creasing issues, which you'll be able to see. I blend it very in-depthly under her eyes, and I make sure that once I'm done blending, when I'm trying to set it, that she's looking up towards the ceiling. So if you are a makeup artist or you're just starting out or something like that, it's very important to have the client look up so that you can get rid of any creases. As you can see, I'm going in and doing some fine detailing to make sure that this does not crease, which can be super easy with people who are older. See how I'm making her look up? It's super awkward, but it just prevents it from creasing, and I was getting my powders ready. If you are working professionally, then you're probably going to want to have your powders ready, but she's my mom, so she's cool. So I'm just taking the Anastasia Banana Powder, and I am setting this. You can see I'm taking my time when I set this, which is very important because if you have any creasing, it can make your client or you look older than you are. So this is very, very important. And I'm just going in and setting. And I think that the under eye concealer is very important because it gets rid of the dark circles, gets rid of the bags. And a lot of times dark circles and bags and creasing underneath of the eyes is what makes us look older. Just as women, we're really lucky and that happens to us. So I think that this eliminates a lot of the age when you do something like that. So now I'm contouring, and I'm using the same Makeup Forever HD foundation, in R230, I believe. So it's just a darker shade, and since I went in with the regular foundation, I wanted to stick with this same formula because I think it looks very natural. So you can see in the areas that I'm going, it is important when you are doing older women or anybody who has issues with wrinkles or sagging skin or anything like that, not like she really does, but you get the idea. It's important to keep the contour relatively light. You don't want to go overboard or anything like that, but this I think definitely brings a lot of dimension back to the face that can be lost when you get older. So I'm just blending that out with my beauty blender, and this process is relatively simple, but you just want to make sure that you are blending away from the areas rather than towards the inner of the face. Like you can see I'm blending downwards here, and I'm blending towards the hairline instead of blending in the direction towards the face, because I don't want her whole face to be this color. So I'm trying to keep it in the areas that I put it, and I'm just blending it out in the outwards manner, I guess. This is really important when you are doing contouring. I have another video coming up later that I will go in depth about highlighting and contouring, but if you are going in with cream contouring, you want to be sure that you take the time to blend it, because that is the most important thing. A lot of people have issues with highlighting and contouring, but you have to remember that it takes time, it takes practice, and if you are deciding to do it for whatever, if you're doing it for your everyday or anything like that, you have to allow the appropriate time to do that. So this process, here takes me quite a few minutes before I finish it. So this is the Morphe 9BZ palette, which is my favorite contouring palette, especially for clients because it has so many varieties of shades. So I'm just using a, I guess, more brown shade than the original contouring color, which is a more orange shade, and I'm going in those same exact spots and doing the contouring the exact same way that I did before. So as you can see, I'm using that middle shade on the right side of the palette, and I am going in and doing the nose contouring, which I think brings a lot more dimension to the face as well. I'm just using a little smudgy brush for this. And again, this is something that does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of time to get the hang of, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too terrible. As you can see, I'm just blending it out with that brush that I used for the highlighting, so it's got a little bit of leftover of that Anastasia Banana Powder, which helps blend it out and make it look more natural. So I'm just using an orangey pink toned blush from the Morphe 9B palette, and as you can see, I put the blush where I want it, and then I dust off my brush and blend it out, because again, you want to be careful when you get older. It's easy to go a little overboard on the blush or eyeshadow or things like that, and you want to keep it very light and natural. So I'm going to be using the Anastasia Glow palette, and I'm using, I believe this is called Dripping in Gold, and this is one of my favorite shades, and I'm using this to highlight her cheekbones. Again, when you get older, you don't want to go overboard on the highlight because it can bring out any texture or fine lines that you have in your skin. So it's important to keep the highlight on areas of your skin that are still very smooth, and don't go crazy with it. So, which is funny because that's what me and my mom started talking about when I was doing her highlight. So you can see I'm just doing the cheekbones, the tip of her nose, and just above her cupid's bow, and I think gives it a very youthful appearance. My mom is like the best model ever. I don't think I've ever done makeup on anybody who sits as still as my mom does. So I'm just doing her brows, and I'm using Anastasia's Brow Wiz in Ebony because my mom's hair on her brows is relatively dark. It's hard to tell in this video, but her hair is definitely more black than mine is. So I'm just going in and filling in her brows. And this rule still applies. You want to keep it very natural and relatively light. So I'm using a pretty light hand when I'm going in and doing this. And I'm being sure that I keep it within the line of her brows, and I brush it out, the product, a little bit to kind of blend it all together. And so that way it doesn't look like she overdraws her brows. It doesn't look like they're too filled in or anything like that. Because I do notice in a lot of older women, that's a pretty common theme, is to go a little bit overboard with it. So I think I skipped past this part or speed past it a little bit, but you can see I'm just keeping it relatively light and natural. She's such a good model. She doesn't even move or anything. I do makeup on hundreds of people, and she's the only person I've ever done makeup on that sits completely still the entire time. Now I'm just using a little bit of the Anastasia Dipbrow in chocolate to kind of fill in. So I used Ebony to kind of outline the brows, and then I'm using chocolate to kind of fill in the brows a little bit and make them a little bit even and darker where I want them. And I'm just going in with concealer and cleaning up underneath of the brows to give her eyes a little bit more of a lifted appearance. It is very important to highlight just underneath of the brow. That way it doesn't look like her eyes have become hooded or anything like that. And I'm just using a neutral brown shade. I believe it's in the Morphe 3.5 In palette, and I'm going underneath of her eyes. This is a very important step, especially with older women, because the skin around the eyes can tend to crowd the eyes, I think, as you get a little bit older. And if you do this and you just blend it out right underneath of the lash line, be very careful to keep it very light and natural looking. That's going to make the eyes look more awake and whiter, and by that effect more youthful. And I'm just doing some mascara, and now I'm doing her lips. So I'm going in with MAC's Boldly Bare, which is what I use for a lot of older women, especially because when I'm trying to do a more neutral look, which is what I'm trying to do for her. So I just line the lips basically as they are. I even them out a little bit by overlining just to make them more symmetrical and even. And I'm using a lip brush, and I'm using Colourpop's Midi lipstick, which I have gotten her to buy because I've used it on her, and that's a very natural looking lip, I think, especially for her. So I'm just setting it with Scandinavia's Bridal Setting Spray, and that is it. So thank you so much, Mom, for being my awesome model, and I hope you guys enjoy. And here's some bloopers. Thought you were gonna film
I don't think it's on there. Maybe it is. Okay, let's film myself.
If you want to come up here, you gotta do it now.
makeup done.
Can I ask you what that smell is?
The makeup wipe?
Why is it smushy and...
It's a makeup wipe.
Is there something on it?
No, it's just a makeup wipe. Glad that we're on the same page. Where's my makeup bag?
I wish I could make myself look like this. I really, honestly, seriously do.
Well,
I go to try and I just look like... I kind of look like the Joker after I'm done.
you also have to look like...
You're going to use the new one? Sweet. I'm very excited. This is my excited face.
Mindy, you look so pretty.
Thanks.